Greetings, I'm Jeff, and this is Clutch City Chatter. So today, I'm going to answer the question of who is the greatest athlete in Houston sports history. That's a question that I'm often asked by friends. Of course, this is a subjective question, so I'd love to hear everyone's opinions on this subject. It's not so easy for me, really. So what I'll do is I'll list my top three. At number three, I'd say Nolan Ryan is the third greatest Houston sports athlete. Nolan, one of his many great accomplishments was throwing 7 no-hitters. And I actually had the privilege of being at his 5th no-hitter. It was in September 1981 against the Montreal Expos, and it was at the Astrodome. And my grandparents had taken me to the game, and it was something that you don't get to witness very often. Even as a 10-year-old boy, I knew that it was history, and up until that time, no one had thrown more than 4. He had thrown 4. Sandy Koufax had thrown 4. And so when it happened, the dome was rocking. It was an incredible time to be there. Another one of Nolan Ryan's great achievements is he's the strikeout king. He has more strikeouts in Major League history than anybody else. That's 5,714. Yeah, I believe 5,714 strikeouts in his career. So the next in line in strikeouts was Randy Johnson, and he's almost 1,000 strikeouts behind Nolan Ryan. So Nolan pitched 7 more years after he threw his 5th no-hitter. He pitched 7 more years with the Houston Astros when they let him leave via free agency, thinking that, his career was basically over at that point. He was 40. So when Ryan left the Astros after the '88 season, he was 42 years old, and he went to play for the Texas Rangers, and he pitched 4 more seasons, and he actually threw 2 more no-hitters. So he's thrown 7 no-hitters, or he threw 7 no-hitters in his career. Nobody else has thrown more than 4, and that was Sandy Koufax eons ago. So Ryan, with 7 no-hitters and over 5,000 strikeouts, almost 6,000 strikeouts, he is a Texas icon. A native Texan, from Alvin, Texas. He's got to be right up there with your top Houston sports athletes ever. And with me, he's number 3. Coming in at number 2 on Houston's greatest sports athletes would be the Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell. Love You Blue would have never been without Earl Campbell. Earl was a soft-spoken, very quiet guy, very mild demeanor. You would never expect him to be the violent football player that he was. And if you see him now, you see he really paid dearly for the type of football he played. He wasn't one of those guys that would duck out of bounds before taking the big hit from a defender. The pain and punishment that he dished out to the defense, it was brutal. He demolished defenders. He'd see a big hit heading his way, and he went at them just as hard as they were coming at him. And it was very exciting to watch. He just was one heck of a football player. And it seemed like he really was that type of person, too. Like I'd mentioned in a previous video, I did get to meet him and visit with him a little bit when I was a little kid, 7 or 8 years old, at a CF Gala, the very night that the Oilers got eliminated from the playoffs in Pittsburgh. The team flew home that evening, and he showed up that night. He was a little bit late to the gala, but he showed up, and that was pretty impressive. He'd had a hard game. He really single-handedly carried those Oiler teams to the playoffs, in 78, 79. they would have never had a chance without Earl, and of course they still lost, but it was so fun to watch. So if you've never really watched Earl Campbell, you need to YouTube some videos of some of his highlight runs and watch him knock the heck out of defenders. Watch his as his jersey's getting pulled off of him and he's streaking down the sideline for a touchdown on Monday Night Football. It was just crazy time, and he was great running back. So fun to watch. So check out Earl Campbell. He's number 2 on my greatest Houston athletes. And coming in number 1 as Houston's greatest sports athlete is Hakeem Elijahwan. In 1980, Hakeem came from Nigeria to Houston to play for the University of Houston, and he led the Cougars to 3 Final Four appearances in his 4 years of college. And then in 1984, he was the number 1 draft pick in the NBA, going to the Houston Rockets. And in his NBA career, you would see improvement every year, especially offensively. You know, he was a tremendous defender almost his entire career, especially, of course, blocking shots. But his offense was a little suspect when he came into the league, and he developed the drop step and the spin move. You know, he developed his patented dream shake, which was just unstoppable move. In 1993, the Rockets finally put the right supporting cast around Hakeem Elijahwan, and he led them to the 93-94 NBA championship. He also went on to win the Finals MVP, and so he became the first player in league history to win the Defensive Player of the Year, the MVP, and the Finals MVP, all in the same year. And of course, that was the first year, that the Houston Rockets won the championship. And then in the 94-95 season, things didn't look so good for most of the year. They were struggling to stay in the I think right around number 8, the last playoff spot for most of the season. It seemed like they couldn't climb up any higher than 8 or 7 in the playoff pecking order. And so the team decided to make a big trade. But that trade fetched us one of Hakeem Elijahwan's longtime buddies from University of Houston, Clyde the Glyde Drexler. And I was at the game when I believe it was the 3rd quarter, all of a sudden the cameras and the lights kind of went from center court to the runway leading into the court, and up from the tunnel came Clyde Drexler, his first appearance in Houston. And the place was a madhouse. You know, Clyde's always had a big following in Houston because he, of course, played with Hakeem at the University of Houston. And there had always been hopes that the Rockets would be able to get Clyde and, you know, put the dynamic duo together. And it just never seemed to happen. And Clyde was nearing the end of his career for sure. And the Rockets were able to swing this trade. And it took a couple of weeks for the team to gel and look like a cohesive unit. But once they did, they were so exciting to watch. Hakeem was playing like a man on a mission. He had to win another title, and he had to do it partly for his buddy Clyde, who had never won a title. And Clyde, of course, was right in the thick of things. And in the playoffs, I believe it was in the Western Conference Finals, the Rockets were playing San Antonio Spurs, and before one of the games, the NBA awarded David Robinson, the center for the Spurs. They awarded him as the MVP of the league, and you know, gave him that award basically right in front of Hakeem Elijahwan, and Hakeem really had deserved it for a 2nd year in a row. And it was obvious Hakeem took that personally, because if you watch video, man, oh man, Hakeem Elijahwan ate David Robinson alive. Anything Hakeem wanted to do on the floor, he was able to do. And he made David Robinson look like a fool out there, spinning around. spinning around, jumping in air, and not getting anything, and Elijahwan just dropping balls in the basket left and right. So that was really amazing to see, and that was right before the finals, and the Rockets went on to sweep the Orlando Magic and Shaquille O'Neal in the finals. So 4 games to 0 against the Magic in the finals, and Hakeem and Clyde were champions, and the Rockets were back-to-back champions. So Hakeem Elijahwan with 3 Final Four appearances with the University of Houston, 2 NBA championships back-to-back seasons, a MVP of the league, a Defensive Player of the League. All of these reasons are why Hakeem Elijahwan is Houston's greatest athlete. A few of my honorable mentions are Houston Astros. That would be Craig Biggio and Jeff Bagwell. You can't say one without the other for the most part, They both are Hall of Famers. And one other honorable mention should go to J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt, I have so much admiration for the things he has done for the city of Houston. J.J. Watt, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. It's a shame that he's had so many injuries in his career that's held him back. And the years that he was so dominant with the Texans, it was certainly not his fault that the Texans never got further in the playoffs. He was by no means at fault. For J.J. Watt, yeah, thank you for all you've done for the city of Houston. So I'd love to hear what you guys think are some of the greatest athletes in Houston sports history. Just post them on here and let me know. And if you've liked the video, I hope that you will click like and please subscribe. And I will see you next time. And remember, swing for the fences.